Okay, so I think we're gonna get started. So hello, welcome to the opening ceremony for EducateHacks. So today we're just gonna kind of go over the rules. Once the ceremony's finished, we're gonna start with team building, and we're also gonna have a Q&A with some founders after we go over the rules. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so this is our second year doing the hackathon. We hosted one last year, and we're thankful that this year we have nearly 3 times the participants. We have nearly 600 people registered this year. So here's just kind of our general rules. So projects must be majorly created during EducateHacks. So to kind of contextualize this, you can use projects you started previously, but the final project you pitch live to the judges must be mostly done during the hackathon period. And we will be enforcing this rule. Last year, we're a bit light on the enforcement, but we will, check GitHubs, check your dev post history, because we really want to ensure that people aren't just like submitting a project they've been working on for multiple years, which last year was a huge issue, because that's really not fair to the people who, in the spirit of the hackathon, just build something within 2 days and submit it. It's kind of unfair to them. So you could create teams of up to 6 people. We're a bit flexible on it. If you really need to go above 6 people, we will allow that based on request, but we really don't encourage going above 6 people. Communication kind of becomes a nightmare at that point. So the live pitch session will be at 5 p.m. EST on Sunday, and you will have to present your project live to a group of renowned judges. This includes famous venture capitalists, world record holders, many people very well known in the field. You'll have 2 minutes to present, and we might extend this time depending on the number of RSVPs to the pitch session. So before pitching live, you'll need an RSVP to let us know that your team is going to pitch live. Your entire team doesn't need to be there. It could be 1 or 2 people. Yeah, and we will put the link and all the information for that out on Saturday. So we'll give you some time to figure out who you want your team to be and get started on your project before you need an RSVP for that. And the reason we want a live pitch session as opposed to just you submitting it is because we feel that kind of gives you a lot more exposure, and you'll also get feedback from people well known in the field, and that feedback will be very helpful in the continuation of your project. So team building, after the end of this ceremony, a period of team building will begin. The main way you can find a team will be via the team building channel in the Discord. The link to the Discord should be emailed out to you all, so check your email if you're not part of the Discord already. And you must have a team finalized by the RSVP time for the live pitch session on Saturday, or the live pitch session on Sunday, I mean. So the theme this year, we've decided to expand from last year. It'll be broadly social good with multiple optional subtracks. The subtracks are education technology, productivity, and social media. And we're going to play a quick message on social media left to us by Sender Murphy, who is a US sender who left a message for the participants of EducateHacks. So here's the message. think there's a bit of lag happening now.
Amog, we're not able to hear the audio.
Okay. So are you not able to hear the video, or have you just not been able to hear me?
Just the video. You've been coming through loud and clear.
Okay, okay. Let me- a second too.
Hey everybody, it's Chris Murphy, U.S. Senator from Connecticut. Thanks to EducateHacks for putting on this event and letting me say a few words. I think you got tuned into me because of a piece that I wrote for a conservative-leaning website about the problem of loneliness in this country. It's not something that politicians talk about or write about very often, but for me, it's really important. I've got two kids, one's 14, one's 11. I spend a lot of time around teenagers these days, and I just think you can't avoid the fact that life is harder right now for young people than ever before, and there's a lot of young people, but also a lot of adults in this world that are feeling really socially isolated, really alone, and this promise that we were given by technology, and in particular social media, that it was going to connect us to each other, it was going to bring us connection to other people. It just hasn't come true. What we've realized is that there is not really a replacement for in-person connection. And what's happened through the pandemic, but also through our retreat onto our phones, is something really unhealthy, something really insidious. We are not doing well today as a nation, and in particular, young people are not doing well, in part because we are losing the ability to connect with each other. And so I wrote a piece about this because, yes, much of this is just personal decision-making, individuals prioritizing connection with family and friends and neighbors over sitting in front of your screen, scrolling through Instagram and TikTok endlessly. But part of it is public policy, right? Creating the space for connection again, making sure that schools encourage time for kids to be healthy, recess, for instance, not being crowded out by academics. Support for local newspapers that connect us to each other, that allow us to learn about our neighbors and the people in our towns. Jobs that pay enough so that you can work 40 hours a week and have free time. So many people can't connect with others because they're working 2 or 3 jobs. They don't have the time to join clubs and organizations, to play sports outside of work. So there's a lot of public policy that can push back against this increasing loneliness in America. But there's a lot of decisions that we can all make that I think will just do a better job of making sure that we feel less alone. And so I'm committed to exploring this issue of loneliness and aloneness for one last reason, because I think it's an interesting way to get Republicans and Democrats, conservatives, liberals talking to each other. I think if we start by talking about the way that we feel and then moving to policy, it frankly unites us, because people feel lonely on the right and on the left. But if you immediately start talking about policy, the regulation of social media companies, then people tend to retreat to their corners right from the jump. So for me, this is important as a parent, it's important as a policymaker, and it's important as somebody who wants democracy to work again. And I'm really glad that you guys are exploring some of this space in this event. Thanks for letting me say a few words.
Yeah, so I think that's a really great message left by the sender. And we hope that, when deciding on what project you want to build, definitely keep that mentality in mind. Let me just get back to sharing my screen. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let's just go through our sponsors. So these are all of our sponsors this year, and these are the people who allow us to have monetary prizes for the winners of the hackathon, and also non-monetary in the form of credits and other things of that sort. So just thank you to our sponsors. Definitely check them out if you have the chance. And yeah, it's really great that we're able to offer prizes because of their sponsorship. And here's a quick thanks to LeanGap. And here's a message from them. Are you able to hear this video, or should I have the other admin screen share? Okay.
Before LeanGap, I didn't think it was possible to like make such good friends and online, but LeanGap has proved me wrong.
It's really the people that make LeanGap great. Like, it was so great getting to know some of you and like getting to chat with the mentors and like hearing the tea, and this journey of building a startup with my fellow Atlas people has been really, really great.
Kevin, we need the name of that hat.
Mochi, sorry.
I'm grateful for lots of things. I'm grateful for meeting all the people I met and all the moments we shared.
I think LeanGap also pushed me a lot. Like with LeanGap, I had to call like over 50 restaurants in California trying to get them, like trying to pitch our business to them.
So yesterday we got our first rejection.
Nice. What happened?
So when it came to LeanGap and trying to get vendors to actually submit the form or take interest in our product, that was hard for me because I felt that I was going into something unprepared. So I'm glad that I learned from that.
11 other coaches on the website, and we had 9 lessons booked and 1 lesson actually took place.
My name is Sada.
And I'm Nishan, and we are representing Ludus, bringing kids the magic of sports.
By putting their kid-friendly products onto our website, we do the marketing and reach out to customers to attract traffic.
Our affordability and flexibility has led to 24 successful bookings and 18 coaches being registered in just 7 days.
We've already been able to reach many users with over 65 journal entries on our app,
which has translated to $590 of revenue.
Judges, let's give debaters what they need to successfully go debated. Thank you.
For most outstanding company for early summer of 2022 is products at Atlas.
You guys all did an amazing job.
Some of you have apps, you have 10 customers. It's really, really incredible. So really amazing work.
I'm amazed by kind of all the progress that has been made in, again, 4 weeks.
I am so proud to see how far you have come in this program.
So LeanGap really taught me a lot, like about myself and how I need to like connect with others.
A lot of what LeanGap taught me is that like working hard is very important. It's also important to have a good balance in life, you know.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thanks to LeanGap for sponsoring, and to people who are interested in what was shown in that video. Definitely check out their website and look into their services. And thanks to Backblaze for also sponsoring. If you ever need to save your data, especially if you're a small business who needs to save user files. Backblaze is really a great place to do that. And definitely check out that website. They have a great free trial. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the planned content. So we do have a Q&A with Vinay Hiremath, who's the founder of Loom, which is a billion-dollar unicorn company, which provides video recording services, as well as Kevin Wang, who's one of the founders of FOSSA, which is one of the largest companies providing open source consulting companies. They recently raised 40 million. So definitely stay around for the Q&A. You could ask questions live, and we'll just be kind of talking. So does anyone have any questions about the hackathon itself for now? Please put them in chat. Sure. So to Becky's question, yeah. So when you submit your project, we will just like check your GitHub. If you do decide to submit code, like see, okay, you have been working on this for the past couple of days. And even beyond the purposes of just checking that you haven't been working on this for months, like we might also just check your codes to help like validate your product and show how much progress you've made in these 2 days. And so yeah, submit a GitHub along with your dev post entry for multiple reasons. And for the subtracks, these are just general kind of like guiding principles, which our judges are aware about and are kind of the main things we think constitute social good. Obviously, social good is up to your interpretation, and you could do it however you want. These are just some of the subtracks which we think that might really encompass what social good is best. Yeah, so to answer Ashley's question, you will need to do a live pitch for 2 minutes, or you could submit via the dev post. Either way, you will need to either do a video or do a live pitch. Live pitch is very much preferred, and because of the live nature, the judges might judge it more favorably. So definitely try your best to come live. But if not, it's fine to submit via dev post, but it's not encouraged, I guess. Yeah, and I got a direct message about teams. So the way teams will work is just find people who you believe complement your skill set in the Discord or via the dev post discussions tab. And teams are really a big part of a hackathon, finding people who complement your skill set, and hopefully people you would be fine with, continuing the project beyond EducateHacks. So really take advantage of the team building channel in the Discord, and check your email if you're not already part of the Discord. You should have it there. And to Aria, yeah, one does not have to be part of a team. It's very much encouraged to be part of a team. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are, there's a lot of people who are looking for teams. And the time of project start, yeah, we have been, we were open about the fact that you need to make most of the progress during the hackathon, even on the registration, but this isn't saying that you can't use a project which you already have made some progress on. You just need to make a majority of the progress during the hackathon. Obviously, there's some leeway, but as long as if we know that, okay, you made progress before, but you also made progress during the hackathon, we will allow you to still submit that project. And if you have any questions about, okay, does this constitute enough progress, feel free to reach out to the admins, and we'll definitely look at it on a project by project basis. It's just, we really are trying to avoid this situation, which we have had last year, of people who have a big project they've been working on for like a year, and then they submit that to 50 different hackathons. We're really trying to avoid that because we think that's unfair to the rest of our participants. Exactly, yeah. So with Aria, who just started their project today, right? It'd be unfair to people like them. So, yeah, so to answer Alex's question, will you be penalized if you go above the 2 minutes? No, we're not going to penalize you. We'll give you like maybe 10 seconds of flex time. And after that, we might just have to like cut you off if you start going beyond that flex time. Mainly because not necessarily just for the purposes of ensuring it doesn't go for too long, but also, you know, being able to be concise with your presentation and help people get the ideas of what your project represents. Being able to do that quickly is a very useful life skill, and we want to help our participants build that via the hackathon. But no, there's not going to be any point-based penalty. We might cut you off if you go past a certain maybe 10, 15-second grace period. Yeah, so we're not going to negatively judge you if you're not part of a team. Yeah, it's encouraged, but there's no part of the judging criteria which says that. And in fact, when we're kind of just on the topic of judging criteria, let me go over that. Or first, let me answer Elliot's question. Will there be a running order for the pitches? Yeah, so we will call people up probably based on the order you submit your pitch. And also if some people are like, oh, I really need to go immediately after the start of the live pitch session, we'll adjust the order based on that. But it won't be random. We'll have the order set in advance. Sure. So to answer Rohan's question, one of the judging criteria is going to be completeness of project. The other is impact of project, and the other is quality of idea. Those are the three criteria. So when it comes to how much code is included in your project, that really goes into the completeness of project part of judging. So if you have a completed product, you have an app or a website, you know, it'll be determined as more complete and you'll be judged more favorably in that section. But if you also just submit a video, yeah, sure. I'm just going to actually put it in. I'll be posting this in the Discord and it'll be in a subsequent email. Let me just put it here. So the rule on the dev post about participants above the US is that's fine. There's a very specific list of banned countries. I believe it's Cuba, Syria, Crimea. Or Crimea is not a country, but banned regions. and 1 to 2 others. I think North Korea is one. So if you're from those banned countries, you won't. Yeah, so Brazil, Crimea, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Quebec, Russia, and Syria. The reason we can't have participants from those countries is because they have rules around sweepstakes, and because there is monetary prizes associated with EducateHacks, we just can't operate how we do with monetary prizes in those countries. So those are the standard exceptions, and you cannot participate if you're from those countries. So the pitching will be this Sunday, starting at 5 p.m. EST. I believe a schedule has been sent out in emails and in the Discord, but we'll send those out again. And yeah, so 5 p.m. EST on Sunday. Submissions will close at 4:30 p.m. on Sunday. So so after the Q&A today, it'll go until 8:15, and then this opening ceremony will disband, but that's when our team building session will start. We're gonna have a bit of leeway after the deadline, like maybe 1 hour max, but nothing really beyond that. Obviously, if you need to go above those 2 minutes, or you need to pitch at a specific time, or you need to submit your project late, really try and email admin@educatehacks.com, or send a direct message to anyone who has the organizing team or administrator tag in the Discord. Really just reach out to us as soon as possible and tell us how much extra time you might need, and we'll either say yes or no based on that. Will we be hosting any social sessions? So we had the workshop today, but we are just kind of letting people go off on their own to create their own groups and have their like intra group social sessions. But we do have like a fireside event after this, but beyond that, in the closing ceremony, no, not really. Yeah, so we can do that, but we think the way intra-group communication could happen is, from my personal experience with hackathons, we oftentimes created our own Discord, and we're able to do voice chats. And so we'd really recommend, once you get a group created, create your own Discord and have all your files there, everything there. But if you want, also reach out to us. We could create a voice channel and a channel in the main Discord for you if you want. Yeah, so to Arya's point, it's really not our decision on which countries we're allowed to have participants from. We run off of DevPost. We do a lot of the functionalities of the hackathon via DevPost. And for whatever reasons, I assume legal liability, they say these are the banned countries, and we kind of have to abide by that, even if, in theory, we shouldn't. We just abide by what DevPost says. So 10 more minutes until the live session with Vinay and Kevin. So just hang tight until then. Or if there's any more questions, feel free to put them in chat. Yeah, so we will be posting a recording of everything on YouTube. Obviously, live participation is encouraged because you could ask your own questions, but yeah, you could watch the recording also. That's fine. Can you elaborate what you mean by break the code? Like if you have like bugs in your code? Oh, okay, yeah. So we will have some support during the hackathon, technical support from mentors, just one or two who could help you with troubleshooting issues. But I'd really like to emphasize, even if you like have a buggy product, something which doesn't work that well, I briefed all the judges that, you know, these people have 2 days. A lot of them are students, teenagers. So even if you have a buggy product, don't be afraid to submit it and still show what you have built. Because that's really the entire point of the hackathon, is to, you know, 2 days, build something and, you know, submit it. But yeah, there will be mentors who can help you. Yeah, so I think Vinay and Kevin should be joining in 8 minutes. So definitely start thinking of some stuff you might want to ask them. We have some general things I'll be just talking over with them, but it's going to be a very loose fireside-esque session. Sure, and I think I just got a direct message to give some more information about the guest speakers. So Vinay, like I said before, founded Loom, and Loom is a workplace productivity company. They have, I think, 1 billion minutes of video recorded on their platform, and they raised 135 million at, I think, a $1.4 billion evaluation. And he's going to be talking a lot about scaling, how to really identify a good product, and also just how he manages all the things he does in his life. And Kevin is also, I think he runs really the only big company which provides open source consulting to companies, helps them open source parts of their code base without exposing themselves to vulnerabilities. So they both run very big companies which hire hundreds of people. So I feel like both of them can provide very useful expertise. So Vinay, both of them are in their mid-20s. I think but neither of them are students. They're a bit more into their career. I think Vinay is a bit older, but yeah, neither of them are students, and we kind of did that intentionally because we think inviting people who've already been through the journey could be very, very helpful. Yeah, so you can ask questions when they talk. We'll have some time allotted for that. If we have time, we might have like maybe 10 minutes where people could unmute and ask questions live. Chat would be preferred though, but you could also unmute. Just let us know in chat before you're going to unmute, because we don't want people just like unmuting and interrupting, since there's a good amount of people here. So we're not actually like, so I don't work for DevPost or anything. We just host our platform on DevPost, and that's how we garner participants and doing judging. And really, that's the only big hackathon platform I know of. It has millions of users, and we just decided that was the best place to be to host the hackathon. So our judges are Shefik Macaulay, Michael Staton, and Josh Mitchell, and then myself. So we'll post their names and a quick bio in the Discord closer to the judging session, but they have a lot of accolades. Michael is currently working on a $10 million company, and Shefik holds multiple world records, and Josh is also currently going through Y Combinator. So definitely a very accomplished bunch of judges. I think yeah, so here's where the schedule would be. Great. So to Kevin and Vinay, I'm not sure if I could hear you guys right now. Oh wait, never mind, you're muted.
I think that was him.
Hey, can you see us?
Yeah, I can see you.
Hey, what's going on? You got Vinay and Kevin here.
What's up, guys?
Cheers.
Gals.
Yeah, so these are the two guest speakers here, and we're just gonna go over. Can you two introduce yourself just real quick? Just
Sure.
You wanna go
Yeah.
first?
My name's Kevin Wang. I'm the founder and CEO of FOSSA. It's a developer tools company. And then I'm joined by Vinay right here. Vinay.
Yeah, and Vinay over here, co-founder and CTO of Loom, which is a screen recorder hooked up to the cloud, essentially.
And we're super excited to be here. So thanks for having us at EducateHacks.
Yeah.
It's great. So just
How
kind
are
of like
you- How are you doing, Amog?
I'm doing good. It's been pretty chaotic setting stuff up last minute.
Yeah.
But it's going good. Opening ceremony went well. It's good. Been busy.
Awesome.
How have you guys been doing?
We're pumped to be here. We've both had pretty crazy hectic weeks. So
Yeah,
I think we're like looking forward to being here and just hanging out and sharing what
chilling, just like answering questions, kind of like stress relieving. How far into the hackathon? We're just kicking off the hackathon, right?
Yeah, this is the opening ceremony. We like just started.
Awesome.
Heck yeah.
It's good.
Look at this.
Tight period. But yeah, so that's great. So just like a quick just like opening question. How would you guys say you went from that like initial idea to project, and how'd you kind of validate initially? Because I feel like that's what a lot of people here are going to be doing this weekend.
Yeah. Vinay, do you want to go first with Loom? And I can go with Fossa.
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing that I'd say is like kind of on a meta point for everybody who's here, like just being at a hackathon and like doing this is the first thing I tell everybody, because I feel like I get this question from a lot of people who are like non-technical and when I mean non-technical, I mean they're like business or like sales and they really don't know how to work on a problem. And I'm like, well, you can't do a hackathon. But I feel like I'm talking to a bunch of makers. And a little bit of background, like I ended up actually going to a bunch of these like hackathons at this Webster house in Palo Alto from this kid named Eric Simons, who is, do you know?
I remember that guy. Yeah, we're actually in the same neighborhood too, Eric. Yeah.
Dude, it's such a small world. And me and Kevin have known each other for going on a while now. And so like basically this guy ended up sleeping in AOL's office and then got really famous on Reddit and then opened up like a hacker house in Palo Alto. And I would go down there all the time. So my first piece of advice, especially for everybody on this call, if you're younger, is to just keep doing stuff like this, because you're actually just going to meet a lot of people who tell you about how to think like a hacker and how to think about like prototyping quick things. Once you get an idea off the ground though, you know, you're probably going to want to iterate and pivot. And so basically your entire job, the way that I've just kind of been explaining it to people, or the way that I think about it, is that, you know, you have like some idea of a problem that people have in the world, and you have some idea about like how much of a problem it is. And basically when you ship your initial prototype or you ship your initial product, you usually learn how much people actually don't have that problem or don't understand it or don't really care. And you want to be iterating over that problem statement. And someone asked, what is the problem there? If you're asking about what I mean by a problem, an example of this might be, you know, we started as like a user testing company that basically allowed startups from around the world to get video guided feedback from experts who are essentially our friends who worked at Facebook or Google or Amazon. And they would record their screens and give feedback to these early stage startups. And the idea was that the problem that other startups had was that they didn't have enough like expert guided feedback in their small communities at that time. And we learned that like two things. One is that our friends were basically doing this because they felt sorry for us, because it took like 2 hours to like record the video and upload it to our servers and whatever else. And the second is that the customers, these early stage startups, actually wanted these types of videos from their own customers, from their real customers. And so we realized that problem wasn't really a problem our customers had. I don't know. What would you say though?
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that, like, just keep building stuff. I think that's probably the best place to start. I really got into entrepreneurship because I just really like building things and solving problems. And so I just wanted to keep building things. And at one point I got good enough at building things that I could build things that could be actually useful. And I think over time, like there's tons of knowledge out there about how to find product market fit, how to discover a big enough problem, how to pivot an idea and make something useful. And I think like you will end up at a place where you'll build something generally useful for a lot of people if you just really like building things and you focus on building things that are really good. And so I just continue to encourage people to keep building things, trust the process, and it'll lead you somewhere positive over time. And there's a ton of knowledge out there on how to make sure what you're building is in a direction of something useful. And even if you don't build something that useful, that's great. You still get better at building things. And I don't know, I can go into my personal story of how I found my idea and all that kind of stuff. But if I were to summarize my whole point of view, like building stuff and getting good at it is probably like 90% of it.
Yeah,
sure.
I definitely think like a big part of just like this hackathon is, you don't even need to have a finished product necessarily by the end of it, but as long as if you're working on a solid idea with potential for impact, they'll still be considered in judging. So yeah, just if you have any questions, just put them in chat, and I'm sure Vinay and Kevin will be happy to answer. Yeah, I was wondering if you guys had anything on how to find a team, because I noticed a big issue with these hackathons is team building is always such a mess. Like you have trouble finding people who care about your project, and it's really hard to get that team built. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
I think like generally, if you're surrounded by really high quality people, really great outcomes happen. I think it's very easy to get like attached to a great idea. But I think the thing that tends to be a lot more consequential and matter a lot more and is harder to find is like great people and a great team. And so what I would say is like, yeah, like have great ideas that you care about and you want to build, but I would be more like emotionally oriented to finding great people that you want to like execute and build with, people you think you can learn something from, you feel inspired by, where there's just good energy. And I don't know, like Vinay, your idea changed, midway through your company's history. My idea did too. I think most entrepreneurs end up having an experience where the company they build looks very different than the company that they start with. And, but the thing that carries people there is you have a great team that you can pivot with and have great ideas with and make great decisions with and do good stuff. So, yeah, like find people you can learn from, where when you embark on a task, the end product becomes, a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing. And I think the ideas and everything else comes.
Plus one to that. Out of curiosity, how did everybody find this hackathon? Or how did most people find this hackathon? This is where I feel like I'm kind of old now compared to most people on this call.
Dev post.
Oh, okay, dev post.
The fact that I don't know that now makes me feel old.
Yeah. So I I think this is like basically my point, because I think Kevin nailed it on the head. And what I'd say is that what I would say is that Discord, dev post, like these sort of small niches of the internet, I feel like they've really thrived. And I actually spend I realized that I'm really old and I don't know where to find other people to build stuff right now. So I actually spend like, and I've started doing this the past couple months, maybe like a couple hours every other week, just like creeping into random Discord channels of like makers, makers that are really interested in large language models, or makers that are really into like web dev. And it's surprising how many people are just like working on their own projects in isolation. And I'm sure that you can find another person who's like, yo, do you actually want to work on this like together instead of like on our own? And so I think you all are like doing a fantastic job of it, of just finding a remote hackathon, and just like, I think I saw some things in the chat of people being like, I'm from Africa, I'm from wherever else. I think that's something that's also really exciting, that really, I don't know if I'm speaking for both of us, but like, even when I was in college, it wasn't like people from all over the world in a distributed way were working together. And I feel like the pandemic kind of accelerated that. And I also feel like people who are maybe like 5 or 10 years younger than us, you all have kind of grown up seeing that like distributed and remote work and collaboration works really well together. And so I feel like I'm seeing a lot more of these projects that start remote first. And so the number of people you can work with has just exploded. And yeah, I think that, like, to not just sound like too much of a hippie, but I feel like vibes have always been the most important thing for me. Like I met so many people who are like really, really smart and really good at coding. And I was like, man, I just can't imagine like hanging out with you though, or like having like, we don't have anything in common, and it's like, when you don't feel like there's that vibe, it can be kind of difficult to like just work and jam and do work and make it fun. And like Kevin said, like, this is a process. So I think being able to have fun is like part of it.
Yeah, the internet's amazing. Like, it's incredible how many great people are distributed everywhere, how you can make amazing connections through the internet. Yeah, so I would say, I don't know, against the parental advice, just go on internet and find great people to learn from. That's how I learned to code. I just found like really good people online, and I like kind of lied about my age and teach me how to code. So,
oh man,
yeah.
we have a specific question about Loom.
Yeah, here, I'll ask you, Vinay, and then you can. So,
all right, yeah.
Moderator, to Vinay, what separates Loom from competitors? And just to clarify, is Loom a video-based company?
Yes. Yeah. So Loom is a video-based company. What separates us from competitors? I mean, like, honestly, right, there's a few different things. One is that because of our scale and because we were, I want to say like somewhat first to market. And what I mean by that is that there were other screen recorders that allowed you to upload to the internet and share, but they were either very early or they didn't like have the performance and reliability that allowed people to use video messaging and async video at the clip that people use it today if they adopt Loom. That first mover advantage and large platform play is a really big brand pull right now. And so that does separate us from some of our competitors. And I would say that's like downstream, a lot of companies that you'll see like coming out of Y Combinator that are like, we're Loom for this or Loom for that. But right now, what separates Loom from a lot of our competitors is performance and reliability. It's a huge part of our platform. Getting performance and reliability right for up to 4K recording and making that as fastly available as your internet speed will allow you to be everywhere around the world with like a global ingest server is really difficult. And supporting the number of encoding formats that we have to support and the number of SDKs that we have to support that are like native SDKs across iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, web browser, and also our SDK, which powers, you know, video recording updates in large platforms like Asana and Trello. It's like, at this point, like the amount of wear and tear and performance reliability that we've built up is it's probably like, we do some small benchmarks, but it's probably at like 10x the reliability to like Descript, if you know about them. And even if you look at like Slack clips or, you know, Microsoft Teams, all of their products actually upload after you're done recording to get away from like having to deal with a lot of the complexity that we take on by making the video instantly available. And so that's probably like the major differentiating factor right now. This is actually, I have like a lot more answers that have to do with like more of the less of the product and more of the nitty gritty of like the go to market. But I'll actually pause there.
Well, I'll add a comment as like a Loom user or longtime Loom user, which is that, and I think this is sort of like something true in just the world of building products. I think people, especially like, you know, like technical people like us, where we like to build and add a lot of features into a product, we can underestimate how incredibly powerful of a competitive differentiator just solving one problem extremely well and making it extremely reliable and easy can be. And I've always, you know, since even the early days of Loom, like just found it just to be the best, fastest, most reliable way to record something and get that video message out to other members of my team. No hassle, super fast experience, always works. And just that like extremely fast user experience is often something that like will make a product grow to become, you know, a sensation. So
for sure.
Less with more sometimes, I think, in breadth.
I kind of have, Amog, if you're cool with this, I actually kind of have like an ancillary question that I asked Kevin that maybe might get at less of like Loom specific and more general of like, I think maybe what they might be asking is like, if you do create a product, how do you make sure you're competitive in that market? But maybe also just like answer it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the generally a lot of markets are defined by like very, very specific problems that people are trying to solve. At the end of the day, consumer software, enterprise software, like all products are built because some human somewhere has some very specific problem they want to solve really well. And so figuring out the most important problem and the best solution to solving it really, really well and way better than anybody else does is to me the strongest competitive differentiator usually. Like there's so much stuff that happens in a competitive market where people say, oh, I have more megabits, I have more features that do this, I have something else. But all that storytelling, I think ultimately loses to just providing true user value. So if there's something that really, really sucks today, and it's a problem that a lot of people have, and you can solve it way better than everybody else, to me, that is by far the best way to differentiate. 100%. And you know, there are definitely other ways to differentiate, but I think that's the most effective.
Yeah, and I think Alex actually was asking a question like this, but it's also something I was like asking myself and like going through recently, like for people who maybe aren't in college or haven't gone through college, what's the best way to kind of get interviews and like start getting like software or tech related jobs?
I've never had a job, and I also never went to college, so I don't know.
I was like, I have had a job, unfortunately. I wish I hadn't had a job. I have had a job before starting Loom, and I dropped out of college, so like maybe the college thing isn't the best. We're not the best people to answer that question, but what I would say is that for me, the way that I really looked for, so when I ended up dropping out of school, I ended up dropping out with like very little programming experience. And so I just knew that I wanted to be the best software engineer I could be. And honestly, looking back on that, it was like extremely naive, just based off of like how far I had to go. But it created this pressurized situation where like I'm brown. I was not willing to like both break my brown parents' hearts by like no longer going to college and being a first generation Indian American, and then also have to go back to like their base and live in their basement because I like failed at doing this thing. And so basically what ended up happening was I went out to intern at Facebook, now Meta. And during my internship, I was just applying to a bunch of different companies and I was bombing real bad. I ended up applying to 56 different companies. I went back and looked at every single one of my applications and it's really painful. Like just terrible interviews where I couldn't even like do very simple things like sort a list. And so basically I went through this extremely grueling process and eventually landed on a startup that would just take a chance on me. And it was because I had read this book called JavaScript, The Good Parts. And I basically tell you this whole story because I feel like the most important thing in the current job market, where it can feel really daunting to try to even go for it when you're seeing like a market where there's mass layoffs and like, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty and people are like, oh, like is like AI gonna like remove a bunch of coding jobs? I actually think the most important thing is to control your mentality and just have the mentality that you're going to get the job. And I would give the same, I actually did give this exact same feedback to a group of entrepreneurs at an entrepreneur summit like a few weeks ago, because they were saying, well, in the current market, what would you suggest? My suggestion would be to them, turn off Twitter, stop doom scrolling, start like just like focusing and setting goals on how to find that next job. And from a like tactical standpoint, you know, there's Hacker News who's hiring. You could literally look at the top companies that you really want to join and find other competitive companies in the space that maybe will take a chance on you that's earlier stage. I'll plug Loom a little bit here because I have seen other people have success with like just recording someone recording a Loom of themselves saying like, hey, I'm really excited about this specific company in this role, and then sending it, like adding someone on LinkedIn, and then there's like a little box that says add note. You can just paste that Loom link in and be like, hey, like I'd love to talk to you about this role on your team. And so instead of reaching out to like a recruiting team or like applying on the website, you could actually like reach out to somebody who's like an engineering manager or design manager at the company. So there's a bunch of different tactics for how you can get your foot in the door. But I think like, honestly, the most important thing, assuming that no one here is going to remember all those tactics and they're all online and free to find anyway, is that I think right now it's more easy than ever to not get the job because you psych yourself out and you tell yourself you're not going to get it.
You know, I mean, I think when advocating for yourself or for a product or anything, a framework I generally like is get really good at what you do and make it easy for a lot of people to know about it. And so generally, I think if, you know, you apply that to a product, you make a great product, make it easy for people to find it. You make yourself great at what you do, apply yourself in the craft and make it easy for people to know about it and a lot of people to know about it. The opportunities will find you. And I think like we're in an environment where software engineers are still highly desired people, competent software engineers. And I don't think, you know, you ever really needed to be extremely credentialed to have great opportunities as a software engineer. You just had to be able to ship stuff. So if you're good at shipping stuff, if you're building stuff that people are using and you can make it known that you're open to opportunities, I think opportunities will find you. And also FOSSA is hiring software engineers. So go to fossa.com/careers to
we're also hiring software engineers, and on the topic of credentials, just so this group knows, I hope this doesn't leak, but whatever if it does, just so this group knows, like I've talked to a non-negligible number of startups that are going to be employing bans on hiring anybody from Google, because like the rap is that a lot of people from Google just can't ship anything. To be clear, we have people from Google who are great. But like just to like paint the picture.
Everybody
like,
but the Googlers at Loom are, yeah.
Yeah, no, we've definitely messed up a lot of Google hires at Loom too. But I think that I'm basically what I'm trying to say is that the credentials thing like 100% resonates, and I actually think there's a little bit of a zeitgeist now in the market.
I'd actually agree in the same way, where I think there's a big reset happening in credentials these days, because FANG overpaid, and it created a situation where there were a lot of people who were complacent and felt like they could make a lot of money without going very hard. And now they're like unemployable in the market because their compensation expectations are extremely high, but their skills are very low. And also their attitudes are kind of used to this kind of easier environment. And so I think right now there's like a very large reset of expectations on what signals a great hacker. And I think a lot of those expectations are not the flashy FANG logo on your resume, but they're on all these other things. And people have gotten more sophisticated in the ways they evaluate great engineering talent. So it goes back, at the end of the day, if you're great at building stuff and people know about it, you know, nobody can ever take those things away from you.
Yeah, definitely just like some personal experience. Like the way I got my first like startup internship was just by like emailing a bunch of CEOs with like a project I built. And I feel like I'm sure Vinay and Kevin, like, do you look more so for like portfolio, or like what do you kind of look for in hires?
I'd say for folks who don't, I mean, either way, I look at portfolios, especially if there's something like impressive. But for folks who don't have a lot of work experience, so we have hired like entry-level software engineers. And for folks who don't have a lot of work experience, we predominantly look at a portfolio. And it's funny because like we'll get a lot of applications from people who like graduated from like an Ivy League school and they have like absolutely no projects on the resume. And I'm like, just because you know about like algorithms and data structures doesn't mean you know how to ship. Like I have no like signal. And so we definitely over anchor on portfolios. That's not what every company does. And so I go back to my point of like, you know, it is going to be like a hard market. I definitely think that if you are like just a first time sort of entering the market, for what it's worth, I think that's the case and has been the case always for most lucrative markets to enter. But I think that's why like expect a lot of no's, grind it out, and like keep working on your portfolio. Like Kevin said, do all of that stuff and make sure this is like a main goal of yours. You know, like I think that if you just kind of like let it slip, like it might be nice, it might happen, but it feels like a thing that you probably want to give like a lot of attention to and a lot of time to.
Yeah, I think all companies ultimately just want you to prove that you can build. And I would actually say there's just a lot of ways to do it through a portfolio. I'm too far away from engineering hiring today, so I actually have no idea how we hire software engineers today. But back in the day, like we used to actually do like a full day of pairing with somebody and kind of see how they built alongside with them, try to implement a feature with them. Now I think we're into something a bit more repeatable as we hire at a greater scale. But I think people are looking for proof that you can ship. And yeah, that'd be true for, you know, the best opportunities out there. And if you can't ship today, like if you're not super confident in your, you know, in your skills, I mean, the good news is you don't need an internship or a, you know, software engineering position to learn how to build. I started coding when I was 9, and I did it from like, you know, Googling stuff and like IRC and finding like people who would want to like teach me how to tell me like all the ways I was stupid and approaching a problem online. And then I just built a ton of stuff, you know, because I, you know, really like doing it. And so if you just keep following the passion and find a couple of people who are willing to invest their time giving you feedback on how to do things better, you can get really good really fast.
Yeah, 100%. And also I see a lot of people are asking us whether or not we have internships at FOSSA and Loom. And at least for Loom, we don't currently. But one thing I'd say is like, you know, I'll put my Twitter handle in here. And I just try to keep in touch with anybody who's wanted an internship or who's kind of like early in their career anyway. And so My DMs are open. Feel free to reach out, and we can just keep in touch at the very least, because I've connected people with internship opportunities at Loom and other companies like down the road, even if there isn't an opportunity right now.
Yeah. We also don't have internships. I think actually one of the things, one like piece of input is it's very hard for small engineering teams or startups to support internship programs.
Yeah.
Because there's such pressures on being efficient with your capital, and every person hired has to be able to ship and deliver. But it starts to get into a much bigger ecosystem when you get to larger and larger company. And so I would actually just focus probably more on larger companies that can support those things, or building relationships with great builders that could help bring you into a smaller company that can support this. And larger companies need to build up, ranks of staff and all that stuff. They have programs for this. So.
Yeah. And I think a question which kind of got lost in chat was, how do you kind of go from going from like 1 or 2 customers to like having 100 customers? Like what did that scaling process look like for you guys?
I think the first 100 for us. So Vinay and I have very different companies. Vinay has a consumer product that millions and millions of people use. I run an enterprise software company, so our customers are other larger companies.
Yeah.
What I would say is that 100 customers for Loom looks very different than 100 customers for Fossa. But Fossa got very, very far, into the millions and millions of revenue, and probably over 100 in terms of customer count, through the still same framework of like building a thing that was way better than what had existed at the time. And we do open source code scanning. So we built a much better open source code scanner. We made it easy for people to try out. And so we gave it for free to open source projects. You didn't have to talk to a salesperson to use our product and use a trial version of product, versus you had to do that for all of our competitors. And that kind of scaled for a long time. I mean, it's still our largest source of growth now, just the sort of organic inbound on the product. So, now we have an open source scanner that now has about 3 million downloads on it. We have tens of thousands of teams on fossa.com using the free version of our product. And then we have, a few hundred enterprise customers. But almost all of that, I would say 80% has come from people coming inbound to us. So I think finding customers 2 to 10 is actually not that hard, as long as you do a good job of building something great and building something that's great for a lot of people, and making it known that it's great. But that's predicated on it actually being a great product for enough people out there. If it gets harder if the product is too custom, or you have to do too much customization work for your first couple of customers.
How did you find, out of curiosity though, when you built that initial, because I remember, dude, I still remember the first time I realized we were even paying for Fossa. It's like, I didn't know that I knew we used it, and I was like, oh, what is this thing? We didn't really care about security back then. I'll be honest, we were just a startup of 5 people that had somehow created this thing that lots of people were signing up for. And then thank God, one of our other team members was I care about security. And so he installed Fossa, and I remember using it to generate these reports for our fundraises.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what are all the licenses of the tools that we're using? And that's something that they really wanted to know, the VCs, of do you guys have your stuff together, so to speak? Mm-hmm. But I just found out because it was already implemented at my company. How did you find the first few people, and then from there, I'm assuming it's outbound sales, right? Once you have your inbound, you're okay, people are referring. And
I mean, to be honest, we actually still haven't even cracked the nut on outbound sales yet. We're still largely this inbound driven company, but we also have customers now that are spending well into the 7 figures a year with us.
Right.
So we go after enterprise software, and I think it just goes back to the key insight, which is every business problem in the world, at some point, some human realizes they have the problem and they want an easy way to solve it. So I just keep going back to how do you articulate the problem and have a solution that's really easy for it? And even in this case, some security person at your company realized they had this problem. Easy to find us. We have GitHub badges all over GitHub. We have, you can Google stuff related to the problem will pop up. and then it gets super easy to start. You click sign up, you put in your code, and you start using. You put in your credit card, you can start scaling with it. So I just go back to like find a big problem, build a great solution, make it really easy for people to then engage and solve their problem, and then you can figure out all the ways to monetize, commercialize, fancy schmancy growth hacking. I think it's 90% problem and product market fit, and then 10% growth hacking and sales hacking and everything.
100%. And that's so for us, we had the exact same. Basically, you're gonna hear a lot of people like there's multiple schools of thought, but there's kind of like two types of people: the people who really think about like channel market fit and like business market fit and like these like more growth oriented areas where like how do we get more customers, and then the people who are like just build shit that people want. And like you can obviously tell that me and Kevin are in the latter category. And it's because when you're at the beginning and you're just trying to get someone to use anything, like people have very little patience to use any new sort of tool, use any new sort of thing. I feel like when you're younger, you're trying all these new products all the time. As you get to like 25 to 30 to 35, you have like a kid and a house. And these are the people that pay you. And so like people just generally have an apathy for like using new things. And so what I'd say is that like definitely focus on product market fit. For us, we ended up using Product Hunt to launch like all of our early sort of incarnations of our user testing platform. And we iterated through that space for like 6 months. And we basically just had like maybe 100 signups across like 6 different iterations. And it just wasn't good. Like no one was using it. They like signed up, they never used the product, or they tried to use it, they didn't really understand how. And then when we pivoted to a video recorder, basically we had this Chrome extension that was tied to our user testing platform. We unlocked that Chrome extension and just started using it ourselves. And then we launched it and we're like, oh, this is like pretty useful. The number of people that signed up on the Saturday after we launched on a Friday was like more than had ever signed up for like any of our runs for the past like 6-7 months. And so like Kevin said, like our product is very different. One of our investors like laughed at us and was like, I feel like I've been like tricked because you've like sold me on this like B2B product, but you still haven't like monetized. And I feel like this is just like a consumer product. It's like, we ended up taking way too long to monetize. That's a different problem, but yeah.
Often when you hear startup stories, you'll hear this like really like strategic pitch of, oh, we had the strategy. But I think the experience of it is a lot like the Maker experience. You just throw a lot of stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And when something hits, like you will feel the feedback. I mean, like we've all had growth hacks. So like one of my early growth hacks was like we would target companies with big open source presences and give them huge discount if they agree to put the badge on the README, or like get open source projects to get the product for free if they put a badge on. So we had all these sort of hacks, but I think for most products, if you really have a great product, you only need one growth hack to get yourself on the board, and then the market will find you. And
for sure,
like as we continue to, I don't know, just like get more advanced in the future and whatever, people are getting better at finding things to fix their problems, and people are getting better at just like understanding how a product works, understanding how it's going to fix their problem. This is true even for like enterprise software also. So at the end of the day, I don't think there's like a channel market fit is becoming a smaller and smaller thing, because like product becomes a channel over time. And like people are good, like consumers are good today at finding the right products for their problems.
For sure. And by the way, if you are running at like our scale, there's like a lot more nuance. Obviously, we have like marketing teams and like sales teams, like, but we're just giving this answer through the framework of like, if you're talking about like, how do we find the first few people who will even work on a problem? It's like, you really don't. I mean, like you should know, you should think about this stuff and you should start building a hypothesis in your head, but the most important thing is just like nailing that first product.
So something I found really interesting about SaaS companies, by the way, or like all these B2B software companies, even the ones that are like very product led, when I first started, I kind of was like, I read all these blog posts about how to do sales and marketing tricks to get people to use your product. And I thought like, oh, like you spend a ton of money in sales and marketing, and that's the thing that really makes a product grow and these companies grow really fast. But if you look at most of like the really great companies out there, how it works is like maybe 80% of the money they spend, on sales and marketing goes to like 20% of the lift on their growth.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the 80% of their growth all just comes from organic. So really, like all of these really successful SaaS companies, like most of it is all just organic growth because the product is great and the market really needs it.
100%.
And then there's this like 20% lift from all the sales and marketing stuff that happens.
Yeah.
But that's where people are spending all the money. So yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's just like a quick FYI. I think we have a bit of trolling with like someone saying like a Bitcoin hack. So we're gonna like lock the meeting just like that.
Should we give them money?
I don't think so. That might encourage the wrong type of behavior.
I'm just kidding. Don't give them money. Don't give them
I
money.
mean,
I thought this was
I think-
Bitcoin the way,
Like-
we're getting paid in Bitcoin for this, right?
Exactly, right? Yeah. I mean, if you could bring it to a Bitcoin wallet, I feel like that'd be pretty profitable.
Yeah.
I think there are some people, I know some people who know how to do that.
I mind a lot of
Know that.
unmute.
Yeah.
they're-
Okay. That's strange.
Okay, let's see how to start the video.
Yeah. By the way, what did this built-in camera on the display is awesome.
Oh yeah, this one? Yeah,
Yeah.
it like follows you around.
Did it sick.
Hey Mo, can you allow us to start our video?
I'm not sure what's going on right now. Let me. Oh, okay. So when we locked the meeting, it kind of did that. I'll do that.
Yeah, disable the chat too.
Great.
Which is like, I think we can all.
Okay.
So how do we do questions? I feel like we missed a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll. Okay. Chat's back. All right. Cool. Now, Vinay, I remember you talked about it like briefly at the 15-17 thing, but what's your kind of experience with crypto? Like, how's it going so far?
What's my experience with crypto?
Yeah.
I've bought a lot of Bitcoin and ETH personally. It's a 20-year hold for me. I basically have a financial advisor who's kind of like the CFO of my life because I'm really bad. Like once I make money, I'm really bad at knowing how to like reallocate it. Like basically I've made like a bunch of investments and I've made some that have gone really well and many that have gone like spectacularly poorly. So like overall it's like washed out. And so I have this guy who like helps me actually grow my wealth. And he begrudgingly allowed me to make a 20-year HODL that we like have as like Project HODL. If you guys all have watched Game of Thrones, I don't know, like hold the door, but like basically I'm holding Bitcoin and ETH for like 20 years. And I really don't look at the fluctuations in the market at all. The only time I've sold has been in this recent SVB collapse because I wanted to report a loss on like for tax reasons. But outside of that, I haven't touched any of my Bitcoin. I just bought a lot of Bitcoin and then I plan on holding it for as long as I possibly can. So I don't know if like that's really an experience of crypto more than me just like making a bet. You know,
my recommendation for this whole audience is don't chase the quick buck.
Yeah.
Build up a cash to, be responsible with your finances. And then you can do whatever you want with like 5 to 10% of your money. And you can do crazy crypto stuff and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
to be clear, like would not be doing this if I didn't have some expendable cash. Yeah.
And I think this was a question from Alex. Like, how do you guys kind of justify having a free version of your product or service? Like, kind of, how do you support that cost?
It's interesting.
As software companies, it's like having a free product is kind of free. There's a support cost, whatever, but like the way I like to think about it is there's people out there with a problem and they need to find a solution in the product. And you want to make sure that your solution is the solution people think about and use when they have that problem. That's a very different question than how you can monetize it, get people to pay, all this stuff.
Right.
Those are two separate things. So I think strategy one is getting the most amount of people that have a problem to solve it using your way of doing it. And then afterwards, you can figure out how to make money from it. And because we're in software, it costs nothing to get, like, the cost to support 10,000 users is the same usually to support 1 million. And there are kind of like, you know, stepping stone stuff, but it's not a cost thing. I think always when you're building software, you want more people using the thing.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think there's like a lot of, this is like somewhat of a more, especially in this market that we're entering, depending on like what your ops overhead is and depending on a lot of things, honestly, like there might be a lot of people who are like, actually, the free version, you like give out too much value. I think it's really important to like Peter Thiel has this, he has like this framework of like value delivered and value captured or extracted. And I think especially if you're a maker, it's really hard to like reason about the fact that the way that you actually like extract or capture the value that you're delivering can look very different. And this is like what Kevin's saying with the monetization being different than like what you actually provide. It can look very different in practice and lead to a better business. A lot of companies like for Loom, you know, it's not free to store video forever, you know. But
were you really thinking about monetization early on, or were you thinking about just getting a ton of people?
Oh, that's all we were just thinking about getting a ton of people in so we could show, because I feel like revenue and traction solves all problems.
Yeah.
It solves all problems.
I think that's like what I would push for. I would just say like focus on that, and that in of itself, you're gonna be really busy doing that. That's like so hard. Totally. And then once you're there, it's a secondary problem to figure out how to make money from it. And like, I think this is an exhibit of that approach working. Loom is a super valuable company, and so
100%. The only thing I was getting at, I wholly back that, is that down the road, if you do find that you have to like charge for your product, you're gonna end up charging for like limits and like based on usage, and like you're gonna run all these analysis of like, okay, now we've had like a bunch of free users and they expect us to charge them so the service can continue to exist. And how does that actually play out in practice? And like, you know, are you getting charged for like one user who uses your product a ton? Well, sure. But then if you have the scale that Kevin is talking about, it actually just washes out in the end. Like we have this one user in Vietnam right now who uses Loom to just like record his his 4K security camera stream, like across his entire property 24/7. And we have unlimited recording. And so we allow him to do this. But like, just because we have so much scale, yes, we like literally pay to have this user on our platform, but it's okay because we have like so many other users who like don't utilize the platform that way and fall into our major tranches. And so I do agree with Kevin. Just get a bunch of people or get a bunch of money. I think revenue and traction solves all problems.
Companies change how they make money all the time. Their pricing and packaging all the time too. So
100%.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are kind of asking this question, especially in this market where it's like, I'd say probably harder to raise money. Like, how do you kind of make that decision to, you know, or at least with Vinay, like drop out of college or like kind of go all in on your project? Like, at what point were you guys when you made that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer for myself. I'm honestly more impressed that you haven't even gone to college.
Oh no, I went to UC Berkeley for a year, so I dropped out.
Okay, you also dropped out. I thought you had dropped out at Berkeley, but
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. The long answer short is that honestly, like I didn't really like. There was a number of things that kind of came together. One was that I was actually a material science major. So a lot of my classwork was like physics and electricity and magnetism and like a lot of lab work. And then I started, like by starting a project, basically hacking on a project that ended up getting some traction on our campus, which was called, we called it Secret Feed. It's essentially a website where you could like post secrets anonymously and people could comment. And it started getting like pretty popular. And that was like my first foray into seeing, oh, I can actually like just iterate and control things without needing a multi-billion-dollar laboratory. And I got really addicted to like the coding aspect, and I started taking computer science classes. And maybe like a year and a half into that, I realized, oh wait, like all of the smarter, like I'd been reading the Steve Jobs biography by Walter Isaacson, and I'd like bought a MacBook Pro. I was like, whoa, this is like an amazing product. And I was feeling really inspired. And I remember just being in like my discrete math class and being like, I don't know how this is going to make me better at building products. And I know that's what I want to do. Like I just want to be the best engineer I can be. And I don't necessarily care about learning discrete math or these other things, but I feel like the sequencing of like, you have to learn things in this order, just it wasn't really clicking for me. And I had known another friend of mine who was in school but had dropped out like a semester before. And so I hit him up. His name's Corey Levy. I hit him up and he ended up, do you know Corey as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back
So
in the day, yeah.
yeah, he's an OG too. So like he basically convinced me to drop out because I was like, yeah, my Indian parents are like not going to be very happy about, like they're not, like that's an understanding. They're going to be furious about this. But you know, basically I ended up getting an internship and I told my parents, like, when I go out to this internship, like I'm getting a one-way ticket and I'm just going to try to get a job and like become the best engineer I could be. And so for me, that was kind of it. It was like the sequencing of having to learn things when I knew it was like so clear in my mind that I just wanted to like learn how to build and ship products as an engineer. And I was like, I don't really want to learn all this foundational stuff in the order that people are telling me. Funny enough, I ended up rooming with a guy who went to my school and I learned a lot of the CS fundamentals by living with him for a year. He's just like a very strong computer scientist and engineer, but you know, I feel like that was kind of the compendium of things that came together for me.
So I grew up with immigrant parents that put a lot of pressure on me to follow the traditional path. I don't know if people here resonate with like making sure you have like great test scores, SATs. Like I started prepping for the SAT in like 4th grade, perfect grade, that kind of stuff. So dropping out of college was a very, you know, different path in my family. You know, luckily I got the Teal Fellowship. So that was one thing that allowed me to kind of have some credibility to leave college and do things. But way before that, I mean, I was just really unfulfilled with college. I only did freshman year and I was building stuff since I was 9. So like being an intro to CS and all that stuff was just so not fulfilling to me. I already had a taste of entrepreneurship before that. And I worked for this, you know, incubator called Techstar. So, you know, I had clarity that I knew like what I want to do. And I also had an ego to myself. And I don't know if this is like, you know, healthy at 28, but back then, like, you know, I just felt like I could do better and I could prove myself and I wanted to prove myself doing my own thing outside of, you know, the path. And so I think I really wanted to bet on myself. Another thing I would say is that taking a year off college or leaving college or all that stuff is like way less risky of a decision than maybe it may feel to some people. You can go back. There are ways you can just say, hey, I want to take a year off or I want to leave and I'll come back, and you're allowed to come back often. Like most colleges will allow that. And so it's not a one-way door by any means. I know tons of people who dropped out who decide they just want to go back. And some of them did it in a year, some of them did it in 4 or 5, and they still have like, they've done amazing work, have incredible lives, incredible careers. There are other people that took a very different path and it worked out too. And so, you know, you like there are much bigger risks and things that you can take. And a lot of these things are pretty reversible if they don't work. So it goes back to the hacker mentality. Try something and see where it goes.
Yeah. And I think that's all.
I will say on that note, one thing, because you brought up something that just like sparked an idea, which is I do think if you're here at like a hackathon thinking about like how to start a company, you're probably somebody who wants to live like whatever your bar of like extraordinary life is in your own way. And I think there's a lot of value in like stepping out. Like I feel like life is like a bunch of streams and like rivers that everybody's like following the bigger river, like the biggest river that everybody's on, like the path well trodden, you know. And it's like there's a lot of value for at one point in your life to step off that path and like really try something that feels scary and feels different than what all of your friends are doing or what they're suggesting you do, and just like go out and like take a bet on yourself. Because a lot of the things we're telling you, like, you know, finding a job, like starting your own company, it's like the thing that like honestly gets in your way more than anything being in the United States of America, especially if you have immigrant parents and you know what it's like in other parts of the world, is yourself. It's your own mentality. And so I wholly bet, like, I think that you should do it sooner rather than later, whether that's college, whether that's something else, because those opportunities to like kind of do something different outside of what everybody else does those do tend to go down the more responsibilities you have. And as you get older, you tend to take on more responsibilities. And so whether that's like starting a company, having a family, having a dog.
I think like something that I've learned as I've gotten to my later 20s is that the best or most rewarding life you can have is one that's aligned with what your authentic self wants and what you want to do authentically. And you shouldn't judge it. Sometimes the stuff you want authentically is very boring and normal, and that's great. And sometimes the stuff you want is like really, really weird. And both of those things are awesome. And, you know, I think like society and your parents and all these people, like they give you pressure to do certain things. And it's because they like want you to be safe, right? Like all these are just sort of guardrails so that like humanity is on a good track. And it's worth listening to them, but like listening to them, but not necessarily blindly following them, just really integrating them into what you want authentically for yourself. So if you love building things, follow the passion for building things. You can pay attention to the suggestions and all this stuff, but like, remember that your main driver is to build stuff. Or if you really want to do something entrepreneurial and you want to charge your own path or be adventurous, like I would say follow the sort of authentic, you know, desire within yourself and, you know, integrate it with what's practical in society and all that stuff. But, you know, Vinay and I both took, I'd say, traditionally very weird paths, and it kind of worked out for us. And, you know, you don't have to do something weird, but there's nothing wrong with doing something weird, you know, so.
Yeah, I think that's a really great message. I was wondering if there's any last questions, put them in chat. But if not, if any of you two want to like kind of give some like closing remarks or like advice for the hackathon or something on, or even just like what sort of thing you should look for when deciding what to build, just feel free.
Have fun with it. Lean in. And if your personal goal is to win, win. Be competitive. If your personal goal is to learn, learn. If your personal goal is to just do something random, have a good time, do it. And if what you build doesn't work, that's part of the process. So, yeah.
100%. I remember listening to Deadmau5, whose artist name is Deadmau5, and just like trying to get myself in this hacker mentality when I was like, I knew nothing about how to program, and I was like trying to build that website I was telling you about. I had no idea how to like build a simple header on a website, which now you have like React and all these frameworks. I just remember being like, man, I am never like, as much as I fool myself into thinking I'm gonna like know about computers, I'm never gonna know this. And we actually have like a cultural value called open black boxes at Loom, which is like an engineering cultural value. And it's basically like I think the magic of life is just like open it. Like there's a black box that you don't understand, open it, and just like keep doing that relentlessly for as much as you possibly can. And maybe you'll run into that like in this hackathon, you know, you'll be like, oh, I want to do this thing, but like, I don't know, like this thing seems really complicated or whatever. Like Amog said, like there's no pressure to like actually ship anything at the end of this. Honestly, like in 5 years, no one's going to give a shit. The only thing that's actually going to matter is like how much you push yourself to like intellectually figure out more about the world. And in this case, like how to build something. And so I just say like open black boxes. And my favorite programming language is C. And I think the reason my favorite programming language is C is probably more sentimental than anything, but I just love like having how lightweight it is, how low level it is, how fast it is to do things, and how easy it is to like shoot yourself in the foot.
That's torturous. I would have said something maybe like, I don't know, Rust or Haskell or something, but I actually never wrote that much Haskell or Rust. I just think they're cool languages. TypeScript, honestly, I know that's like a boring answer.
TypeScript,
but it's actually incredible, the story behind TypeScript, the fact that they were like, Microsoft was able to create something that amazing with that level of interoperability. There are constraints to the language, but do you have a favorite hackathon memory? Did you do a lot of hackathons back in the day?
I did a lot of hackathons.
Yeah.
Favorite hackathon memory? I think my favorite hackathon memory was probably like the third hackathon that we did at Eric's, like this guy that I was telling you guys about, his place. We basically, the hackathon started as like all of us like starting to work on our stuff, and then we just started like playing music really loud, and like some people were like getting off of the hackathon. They're like, because these were people who had been like hacking together for a while, and so hopefully you all experience this at some point where you just like hack with a bunch of your friends and you keep doing that. But we ended up starting to like party instead of hack. And
hackathons were such a blast. Yeah,
dude, it was amazing. And so that's the one thing, like, I think my favorite hackathon stories revolve around like in-person experiences. And so I hope that this group gets to like do that in person and find that community.
I've had so many random hackathon where I remember like I was 2 a.m. playing ukulele, like just chugging Red Bulls. And I don't know, there was Technical Disrupt used to do this hackathon, and you would do like, you would go on stage. So I actually remember I was pitching on stage once, and I was like really nervous, and I was trying to do hand gestures because I talk with my hands, but then my hands were in my pockets. And then so I like pitched a thing that, and we ended up getting like a runner-up place or second place or something. But I was like flapping my like elbow on stage because I was trying to do hand gestures. My hands were in my hands, and then there was like all these people on the internet making fun of me. But it was like such a blast. All these hackathons were just I'd say peak memories for me. So
100%.
These are just fun, awesome things to do.
Yeah. And just as like a closing thing, everyone can unmute. So if you just have any like quick questions, just ask them.
Who's going to be brave and come off mute?
Yeah, this is a bit.
Are people allowed to come off mute? Is it like locked?
Yeah, we just like gave everyone the permission like right now. So if anyone wants to, they can.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Perfect. I just wanted to say it was really good because honestly, like I haven't been to many hackathons, but to the ones that I've been to, I have never basically came across people who talk to you more like mentors than guest speakers, if that makes sense. And it has been really nice trying to like get the insight from someone who is talking as and like someone who has gone through the struggles we are going through right now. It's not something I've seen before, so I would just say that it was really nice listening to you guys talk. Thank you.
I've been having a ton of fun. I don't know about you, but
yeah, me too, dude. It's mutual. Also, is that a German accent? Are you in Germany or from Germany?
No, I'm in Canada, but that's everything. So yeah, so I have every accent possible, kind of.
Yeah, my bad. Okay, never mind.
I mean, Hack Club is amazing. So I just want to put that out there. And, you know, Hack Club is probably one of the best nonprofit organizations that I know of today. I think it's super inspiring. I think it's super cool that everybody here is engaged and being a part of it. I'm like a donor, like I really believe in the mission of it. And so I think you guys just being involved in this is super cool and super awesome.
100%.
Definitely, like this hackathon would not be possible without Hack Club. So like even when it comes to like monetary, but just like general, like this is a Zoom Pro meeting from Hack Club. So we're completely kind of run off Hack Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to be roommates with Zach.
Oh.
So I think we pretty much all of us know each other through hackathon type stuff. And so really like, I don't know, Vinay and I have been friends for a long time, and I've been friends with Zach for a long time. And the connections that you'll make as part of these sorts of things will be connections that'll stick with you for 10 years, 20 years. Like,
dude, it's so true. It's so true. And it's like when you spend more and more time in like any sort of community, but especially in like tech, it's just such a small world. It's such a small world, which is why when people are like, oh, do you have internships? And I was like, no, but just hit me up anyway. Like the number of people that I just hear, oh, that person's like starting a company and it's like blowing up. Like I had no idea. And it's like someone you would never guess. You know, it's like
a lot of industries are like sort of these zero-sum games and really competitive. But I think in the hacker and tech industry, it's really one of these communities where like when your friend is winning, you're winning, like people are winning,
100%.
You're creating value. Like, so it's just also really supportive and cool. And yeah, I love being part of this community.
Yeah, for sure. And I think someone asked this, like, do you think the hype around AI APIs is kind of like destroyed the traditional software instinct? It's very interesting.
Oh my God. I think AI is underhyped, even though it is the most hyped thing ever.
I think he's asking, is it destroying the software industry?
Oh, is it destroying the
I
software?
agree with that.
The software industry
So, sorry,
everything.
I asked the question, and the thing that I wanted to convey was that when we have AI and the APIs that people use, it's as if it has become the thing, right? So the thing that has gotten us this far is traditional software instincts, be it the way we develop the search engines or something like that, right? It has been devoid of all the API hype that we had, because it kind of I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but the idea that I'm trying to convey is that when we've gotten this far with the idea of traditional software development, where we have issues and we solve them with the senses that we've gathered so far, right? But the coming of AI has kind of taken away the hype and the relevance of what the traditional software instincts were supposed to be. That was my question. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I guess I would agree with that. Like all of us here work in the innovation economy. So we are playing a game where we're trying to make the thing that existed yesterday suck and get outdated. And that means all of us need to constantly adapt to the new stuff that's coming in. And not a lot of industries move this fast, but our industry is an industry about doing new things. So like this idea that something just happened and completely changed the game fundamentally for everybody, and we all have to relearn how to do stuff, is a really normal thing, I think, in our sector. So I would say I agree with that impression. And yeah, I mean, I would like we should expect to retool ourselves every couple of years anyways. That's just like a normal thing.
Yeah, I have a hypothesis that like there's many parts of our brain, but like the two parts of our brain, and maybe you'll appreciate this, the person who asked this question, there's like the frontal neocortex, which is like, I'm grossly like butchering, like this is an oversimplification, but like the frontal neocortex, which is responsible for like logic and executive reasoning and functioning. And then there's like, you know, the reptilian part of our brain, which is like the most developed because it's developed over time. And it's like, oh, I'm like scared of this, or like, I really want this. Like, I'm fearful that this thing will like hurt me. And I have this hypothesis that like when our frontal neocortexes evolved to be able to like speak to each other and like emit language and work together, like basically the frontal neocortex was like, I'm sick and tired of this reptilian brain just like creating a bunch of problems for me, and I just want to escape it as fast as possible. And I think that this is like the underlying basis of like technological process. And so it's interesting that you bring up, which by the way, this is a total like, you know, I got like stoned like over like several years. This is not like,
what do you mean? We don't do drugs. What are you talking about? No,
yeah,
no
this
drugs.
is totally like I was just super bored over several years, but like basically like, I know this is not science, it's just about this, but I think it's interesting because the thing that I think is freaking out a lot of people is that whoever did ask this question, if I were to like accept that worldview of like, it's taken a lot of the hype out, and you were like, look, like the way we've traditionally done this is like, we've controlled that like Bayesian filter where it's like, we determine the probability based on all of our experience of like the next thing being true. And like, that's how logic works. And now this other thing is able to do it much better than us. And like, we're looking at these large language models and they're really good at holding a bunch of information and solving these like needle in the haystack problems. If you believe in that, if you truly believe in that, and I'm not telling you to believe it one way or another, then that doesn't mean that you're going to get like replaced in software. It could be that you apply that software to do other things. Like, I think it's really interesting. I think over the next like 5 to 20 years, bioinformatics is going to absolutely explode because there's a bunch of these problems in like biochemistry that like humans are just not good at, and they're never going to be good at, because you have to understand all of this information about like all these minutiae of like data and like how these things react together. And it's like, you can use these models to do software work and hardware work to improve the lives of other people in the real world. And so then you might say, okay, well, what about the singularity? I mean, if you're worried about the singularity, then yeah, you're going to be bummed out on all sorts of tech. And I personally cannot help you there, but
yeah, I mean, I really resonate with like, you know, Vinay's stoic mindset on this. I truly think like, if you just get really good at embracing change and embracing the stuff that happens, first, I think it's a necessity in our industry. But really, like, as new stuff comes out, AI, whatever, figuring out how we can be relevant and adapt to it and make it a strength versus kind of cling on to the ways of how we've done things in the past, I think is super important. But that's true about so many different things in life, in business and entrepreneurship and relationships and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, I've always had that kind of resonated with that stoic mindset, and
100%.
For sure. And I think that's all. Also, like, on the topic of just like you kind of brought up jokingly, like, I feel like this is joked about a lot, but like, what's up with like ayahuasca in the valley? Like, is that a real thing, or like, because I like see so many memes about it, but is it like actually true? Like,
actually, yeah. Well, actually, I think a lot, because I think in Silicon Valley, the fundamental thing we do is we do new things, and we do new things very, very intensely. And we have to embrace change really, really intensely too. And we're all like high openness people. Otherwise, we wouldn't be working on this kind of stuff.
100%.
And I think when you embrace change to the fullest extent, you change yourself for that too. And at least in the path of entrepreneurship, but like, this is true even if you're a software engineer, whatever, like if you just do entrepreneurial things, you end up having to reinvent yourself a lot and learn a lot about yourself through that process. So I think a lot of people in Silicon Valley are open to new ideas and like to try new things, but also like go through these shared experiences of self-transformation, many, many times throughout their lives. And there are a lot of ways to do that in healthy ways. And some people, use substances and stuff. I'm not necessarily advocating for that. But people turn to philosophy, people turn to therapy, people turn to reading and old texts, people turn to sometimes mind-altering substances and all that stuff. But it's all in the service of this idea of embracing change and transformation to do new things. And so the ayahuasca thing in Silicon Valley is real. The popularity of psychedelics, all that stuff. Again, I'm not advocating for people to do that, but I think it's important to understand that the underlying thing that makes it popular is this sort of commitment to transformation requirement that people make these space shifts in their lives.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. That's like so well put. If you are going to do ayahuasca, the one thing I would say, I would go to, don't do it in the Silicon Valley. Go to like Peru, like find a real shaman. No, I'm just joking. I
would say, here's the thing though, I would say that these are things to take very seriously.
Yes.
While it's popular, these are not things that you screw around with. You would do it responsibly. If you ever encounter that kind of stuff in your life, do it with people that really know what they're doing, that you trust. Treat those kinds of experiences with the level of respect that it deserves. And like, I wouldn't screw around with it. So those are very powerful experiences and things that you'd be signing up for.
Yeah. To put it in perspective, I've had an experience like that. And the way that I describe it to people is that it was the most significant event in my life outside of being born. And so like, I wouldn't, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I don't, yeah, either way, I have nothing to add. Kevin's done a really good job.
Sorry, Ari, you were going to say something?
Yeah, like on the topic of like change and like AI, like adding on to the previous question, what do you guys think about like the changing role of like software developers? Like for example, like I feel like humans are like more in the ideation role, well like GPT models, like these better AIs that are always like developing nowadays, they can basically like write all the code and like do design stuff like Microsoft Designer, like these new AI tools and stuff. So like, how do you guys think software developers or like companies will like reformat their like jobs and their roles of their employees? Like, how do you think this will like change the landscape?
Good question. What I would say is I have no idea. I don't know anybody that really knows. And if they do know, they can probably go make $1 billion. So I don't think the question is necessarily like what is the, like, how do we define today what the most valuable role is? But I think the strategy is more so, how do we learn as much as possible about this technology and then come up with ideas of how we can stay relevant and add a lot of value alongside that in the world that's coming. I have no idea how the software development job is going to change. A lot of people have different takes and opinions on that kind of stuff. But I think the two most important things to do are to learn a ton about the technology and come up with lots of ideas about how you can add value on top of it. And if you really get those two things, you will stay relevant no matter what.
Yeah, I think that for anybody who has this question in their mind, like the one parallel, I certainly don't know. I mean, like to Kevin's point, the one parallel that might be interesting to look at is the moment when like operating systems really became a thing, because a lot of what we're saying about LLMs, and I know this is like a different step change, and every step change is by definition, like it's an order of magnitude, so it feels even greater. But like what I'd say is that if you look at this guy named Bill Joy, he's a great person to study because he was kind of right at this intersection of like AT&T, Bell Labs, when we were like coming up with like C and all this stuff, and then like where the operating system is today. And, you know, he's responsible for a lot of that transition from when people were using like punch cards to developing my favorite programming language, C. So I would look at like how some of those people, because if you feel like you're like, oh, well, I don't just want to be an operating system engineer, you know, I want to be like the person who does X, Y, and Z, whatever that is in your head, like starts a company, you know, builds a product that like maybe AI is going to build most of. It's like Kevin's point of like, just be at the place that you're naturally drawn to and learn as much as possible. It's like, there's going to have to be humans like operating some of this stuff, right? So like, would you rather be someone who like didn't participate and then you're like, well, I have no idea and I have no way to enter the market? Or would you rather be the type of person who's like built somewhat of a foundation and now you have like a really solid understanding of how all this stuff works together to better further your goals using the tool? So I feel like there's kind of like an underlying current of a lot of people asking these questions of like, well, like, should I even try? Or like, how does this change things? And it's like, really, I think what me and Kevin are trying to say is just learn as much as possible.
Yeah. And but I would agree with what you're saying is happening. A ton of stuff is getting automated. Lots of jobs are going to get displaced. Lots of things that people do today are going to be performed by AI. That is extremely clear. I think everybody agrees with that. But that also happens all the time. I think that's very important for human progress. And I think there's a lot of value in embracing it. So
yeah, for sure. And I think there's a couple more questions in chat, but like feel free to hop off whenever. Sorry for it going over time by a bit. But
we do have to get going because we have a reservation at 45.
okay, I'm sure we can be a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Are there maybe we'll take a couple more questions and then we'll head out? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. Like, someone asked, what are the highest stress scenarios you've been in as a professional?
Ooh. Do we really want to go there?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I mean, I can go first. I mean, first I'd say is like, if you ask most entrepreneurs, I think most entrepreneurs will have a lot of experiences with some of the ups and downs. I think the path of entrepreneurship is like, you know, fraught with a lot of mental health challenges. It really tests you. A lot of people struggle with anxiety and depression through that path. I certainly have, and I know a lot of founders who have. So it is it's a path that really tests me. For me personally, it always comes down to people stuff. I had a year where I had to replace my entire executive team, and that was like the worst thing ever. And it was a period of time where a lot of people in the company doubted my leadership, and a lot of I'd say it's very, very stressful. But I think you go through those kinds of experiences, and for me, like I was like depressed through that whole period of time too. So I was like doing survival stuff. I was like, quit alcohol, like hire a personal trainer, help me get up every day and at 6 and work out and have a good routine. Like I was doing everything humanly possible to sort of support having, like going into monk mode, being able to, work through those kinds of times. I think you learn what's really possible at the other end of it. And you also learn to, trust yourself a lot when you go through experiences like that. So, lots of really high stress situations. For me, it's always been like personnel related things, and doing things that seem really risky in front of a lot of people. There are these big bets where people will doubt you, and you doubt yourself, honestly, the whole thing, but you just power through, and you learn what's really possible. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that I have so many, like Kevin said, there's like, you don't have to look for problems, like problems will find you over time. And I think that I'll give you like one example, maybe that's like not personnel related, although like everything personnel related has been so much more stressful. I'd say that like there was a period where, you know, we had like the pandemic had like shelter in place had just started, and we released like our COVID pricing, which was like half off and then free for students and teachers. And we just did that because we're like, maybe we'll get some growth out of this, but also like it just seems like the thing to do, because like a lot of schools are going to fall behind. We were like talking to one of our investors who had just like come away from China after he just like moved to be close to family. It was like, I need to get out of here. And so we really, it was Andy. Yeah. It was Andy. So dude, I literally talked to Andy, and Andy's like, yo, like if you could just do anything, he's like, this is the moment where like you become like a conscious capitalist, you know. And we didn't know what was going to come out of this. What ended up happening, obviously, is shelter in place went into effect, and everybody who was a student or teacher was using Loom, and then their spouses or husbands, other family members who are working picked it up, and we just had an explosion of growth. I mean, like it was, you know, I was looking at the charts. Some days it was like 500% day over day. It was just like it was such an insane amount that like every system was failing. Like everybody was online working like 16-hour shifts. Our entire servers were like falling over. This is at the beginning of the pandemic, and we have an international team. I was hopping on calls with people who are like getting emotional about like their family members and not knowing what's going to happen. And that might seem funny now, but like at the beginning of the pandemic, this is where people are at. You know, like I had an engineer in Italy who was like, my grandma just sent me like photos of trucks like carrying, you know, it's a predominantly older town in Italy, and there's like people just like being carried out of the town because they were dying. And you know, I'm dealing with all this. Our servers are falling over. Our head of infrastructure decides to tell me that he needs to leave the company. So the guy who's in charge of keeping all the servers afloat is like, I'm leaving the company to start my own company. And he's literally tearing up because he knows this is the absolute worst time he could give me this news. And he's like, look, like, I know that this is like, I know that this was going to be like my exit. And so he was like, I'm here for like at least a couple months to figure it out, but I have to leave. And I'm just like dealing with like, I feel like there are moments like this as a founder, like, and it's even worse when it's personnel things. I feel like it sounds flashier when I give you this example. It's actually worse when it's personnel things, because you're thinking about like the human emotion of like, well, it's another human being. This is like our company is just like needs to scale and is falling over. But yeah, that was a stressful time. Most of the company really didn't agree with like my choice to not let engineers do customer support. Like everybody was like really tired. I was like, look, our engineers are the only ones who can get us out of this. So you have to like say these things that like piss off a lot of people, but they're like the first principle thing to do. And so, yeah.
I think in those moments you learn that as humans, we actually really don't, we need a remarkably few number of things to be okay. And when you really learn, I don't know, you get some basic, you know, safety once you have it. You want to do a last question? Like HJ raised his hand, or there's another one in chat, or?
Yeah, sure. HJ, feel free to ask away.
Hello. So for both of you, what would be the okay, sorry. What was the best way that you guys dealt with an extremely stressful environment, and then in like more healthy ways? Because I know we talked about more of kind of substantial ways. So what would be the most healthiest way to deal with it? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I have a big list. Honestly, I got to a point where I was so stressed out, I just like put the stop button on my life. I wrote out a list of like 100 things to do, and I just did all 100 things. I think like really impactful stuff that fell out of like that stuff for me, like taking care of health, like sleeping well, eating right, not drinking any alcohol or doing any substances, like really getting serious about health. Like investing in my friendships, calling my family more, my friends more, like building strong emotional relationships, being really honest with myself on all the areas that I wasn't happy in my life and making changes, even if they were kind of painful changes in both the company and also personally. I started seeing a therapist. I started meditating a lot, like an hour a day. Like like really fundamental type stuff, I think was key for me.
Yeah, I mean, strong +1 to that. For me, it was meditation. Like anytime there was like a super stressful moment for me and my co-founders, we would meditate. That can be hard, by the way. Like I know that meditation can be like difficult. So I think the bigger thing is that when you're in a situation of like overwhelm, your natural instinct is to like keep overwhelming yourself. And so like even when like you're like, okay, like I'm done for the day, then you like go on TikTok or you go on something else that is like an overwhelming experience that's like overloading your brain even more. The trick, even if you're not like meditating, is to just like break that. So like if where you're at is like, look, I'm just stressed out, go for a walk. Like that's something that hopefully you can do. Get out, you know? So
at the end of the day, I think your attention is the most valuable resource you have as a human being to invest, and you control over where that goes. And you know, it's more important than money. It's more important than anything else. It's really where you invest your attention is how you end up feeling at the end of the day.
100%.
And yeah, I think that's it. So thank you guys for coming.
So much for having us. This is great.
Thank you guys.
Sorry for going over time again, but it's great.
It was fun.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, go build some stuff.
Yeah,
let's go,
dude. Yep. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Take care. Yeah. And